Here's why XRP could go to $10,000. Now I know what you're thinking. We've already brought out the whiteboard. We did all the calculations. We looked at the moon and the stars. But let me explain why I really think that $3, $4, $5, $10,000 XRP is very possible. The main reason is because we've never in our history used a deflationary currency. We've used fiat paper monopoly money, right? We've used gold, silver, many other things have been used as a currency in the past. Many things that have a finite supply, that have utility, that are a commodity like gold, right? But there is no deflationary aspect to those currencies. When we use XRP, we're going to burn a little bit of that XRP every transaction. When we use a dollar, there is no dollar that gets burned or no portion of a dollar that gets burned. So it doesn't matter, if we get all the money or if we just get some of these networks, that deflationary aspect of XRP, there's just no telling.
If a single XRP token soared to $10,000 by next year, its market cap would dwarf the $454 trillion global wealth combined. An idea so bold it sounds like science fiction, yet it's rapidly moving from fringe chatter to serious debate. For years, whispers about XRP's potential have run wild through crypto circles. Some call it fantasy, others see a blueprint for the future. What makes a claim of $10,000 per token more than wishful thinking? Who is driving this conversation, and what evidence backs it up? In this full breakdown, we'll sift through the hype, clarify the numbers, and explore the bold arguments fueling one of the most ambitious price predictions in all of digital assets. By the end, you'll know exactly why this vision isn't being dismissed.
There's a lot of people out there saying XRP could never get to $10,000, and there's other people out there that's saying it could. I'm not going to get into those fights, but I just want to show how mathematically and technically XRP could possibly pass $10,000. First of all, we know that XRP is one of the few tokens or coins out there that's a perfect fit for the banking system internationally. So let's talk about the SWIFT banking system. SWIFT handles about 1.2 quadrillion transactions a year, which comes out to about 5 trillion a day. If we take the total supply of XRP, which is about 100 billion, we divide that into the annual amount that SWIFT handles, that's about $12,000 per XRP. Now, we already got a lot of rumors that say a lot of big banks, institutions, and very wealthy people are holding XRP waiting for this to happen. And a lot of XRP is held by retail investors and a lot is locked in liquidity pools. So if we just assume that 10 to 20% is available, this price is actually a lot higher. It could be 30, 40, 50,000. Now, I'm not saying or speculating that's where it's going to go, but I just wanted to show that it's technically possible for XRP to reach over $10,000.
Schmid, co-founder of CoinViral, ignited the latest wave of excitement when he tweeted, "XRP to $10,000 isn't a meme." On X, his 280-character post exploded across feeds, drawing equal parts ridicule and intrigue. Schmid isn't a random influencer. He's a respected voice with a track record of accurate crypto calls. When someone like him stakes his reputation on a $10,000 target, even skeptics pause. What changed in XRP's fundamentals to make such a leap plausible? And why is his timeline, by next year, so specific? It helps to know that Schmid isn't alone. Last August, market commentator Levy jumped in, pointing to Ripple's deepening ties with central bank digital currency projects. He noted that Ripple has quietly partnered with multiple governments exploring CBDCs, and that XRP could power the liquidity layer for those systems. More adoption at that level could flood the XRP ledger with trillions in transactional volume. When large-scale institutions start moving national currencies through XRP, even a tiny fee margin translates to massive demand, and that demand pushes price.
Picture this. I'm scrolling through the kind of morning markets on my phone while the kettle is whining in the background, and the gold chart is yelling at me in neon green. $3,500 an ounce. And it's not kind of every day that the world's oldest store of value decides to cosplay as a meme coin, but that's exactly what it did over the last 18 months. An 89% sprint since October 2023. And while the rest of us were kind of busy arguing about spot ETFs and whether AI influencers would replace dog coins. Now, I'm no bullion bug. I don't even own a fancy watch, just an Apple Watch. But when something that slow and shiny moves fast, I pay attention because history says that crypto gets jealous. And sure enough, jealousy looks good on Bitcoin right now. After weeks of playing basement ping pong around 80 grand, the big orange coin just punched its way back to 95,000. That's 11% in a single week. Now, it's kind of like watching your laid-back roommate finally slam the door and shout, "My turn." But tucked in the corner of the room, curling up like a cat that refuses to leave its sunny spot, is XRP.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, Christian prophet Brandon Biggs claims divine insight into XRP's future. According to Biggs, he received a spiritual revelation that XRP is destined for $10,000. Whether you take that literally or see it as a colorful expression of unwavering faith, it highlights the passion behind this prediction. Belief alone can unite a community and spark early momentum. But in markets, faith must meet facts to have staying power. In a 2024 podcast, Otto Fanina of Alpha Lions Academy and the founder of Black Swan Capitalist argued that major financial institutions, think the IMF and global clearinghouses, could effectively peg XRP's price for cross-border settlement. They drew parallels to Bitcoin's rise. Early BTC believers were mocked when they suggested $10,000 or $20,000 targets, yet those numbers now seem conservative. XRP, they say, has an advantage thanks to its native use case: swift, low-cost transfers that banks need but haven't fully adopted until now.
The middle letter. And then the Lord showed me driving down the road about X and P. But I won't give the other one because this is not financial advice. But I saw that certain thing going above $10,000. And I saw it going to $5 quickly. And the Lord told me that this would be big like Apple, Microsoft. It would be the new .com era that's coming. That a new .com era was coming through digital platform. It'd be a supernatural wealth transfer coming through certain things. And I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are seeing President Trump step on the scene with Elon Musk. And we are seeing people who have a different way of thinking.
But what does the math say? At its current price of roughly $3, XRP's market cap sits near $177 billion. To hit $10,000, that cap would balloon to about $5.70 quadrillion, over 12 times the total value of every stock listed on every exchange today. It's a staggering figure, one that forces a reckoning. Where would all that capital come from? Are we talking about retail buyers alone, or a wholesale shift from gold, government bonds, and even entire economies? Market cap in crypto can be misleading. It's simply the token price multiplied by circulating supply. Unlike stocks, there's no board of directors or capital constraints. If demand surges and tokens are locked up or burned, supply shrinks and price rises. But for XRP to reach $10,000, demand would need to outstrip supply by orders of magnitude. Institutional inflows, CBDC usage, and massive corporate treasuries would have to become regular participants in the XRP network.
XRP is designed for 10K. Let's tack on another 37 big ones. There is no way that they will be able to make this up or even put a dent in this deficit. Since the Chinese lie about everything, it's safe to assume they're in recession. Chinese authorities held emergency meetings with banks. China's property crisis is getting much worse, reporting the number of homes for sale nationwide in June rose 2%. Home buyers are refusing to pay. These are on developments they've already put money down on. They are now considering hiking 100 basis points. That would be a 1% raise. May CPI up 1.3%. to 9.1% year over year. Let's talk about real estate. Going to take more than that, darling. This ain't 2021 anymore. It's another one bites the dust. Estonian Prime Minister. Russia continues to earn more by exporting less oil.
We don't have to sell them on the fact that they have to do something different. We have to sell them that we're the right path.
And they have done that. And then when you get everyone on board and you get them to understand that XRP is designed for 10K.
That leads us to the mechanics of capital flows. Imagine a world where several central banks run pilot programs on the XRP ledger. Each time a government transfers digital dollars or euros, they convert fiat into XRP for a moment before settling on the other side. This corridor system could pour hundreds of billions or even trillions through XRP daily. Multiply that by dozens of corridors, and the numbers start to climb. Suddenly, the $5.7 quadrillion target feels less like magic and more like a giant arithmetic problem. Yet to get there, global monetary policy must pivot. Central banks would need to embrace digital currencies wholesale and collaborate with private chains. Regulatory clarity would have to arrive, especially in the United States, where Ripple's ongoing legal battle with the SEC has cast a long shadow. A victory or settlement in that case could unlock a torrent of capital from hedge funds, pension plans, and corporate treasuries waiting on the sidelines.
I think that there's too many imminent global catalysts that are going to cause supply shocks and the need for instant settlement on the back end of the stock market and other markets. And you got to have an asset that's able to facilitate that. Really not anything else out there that's been vetted, tested, integrated, all the other components. There are other networks that are better than the XRPL. I'll say that. Holochain has a higher throughput. Hedera has a higher throughput and security. There are some assets out there. However, my challenge to that would be, how long have they been around? Hedera has been around since 2018. That's when their ICO was. I don't know when Holochains was. There's many other assets. The deal is, these banks have been trialing XRP for more than a decade. And that's how long it takes them to get comfortable with something. They need to know, for sure know, that there's not going to be any problems, that this is going to be the backbone and the infrastructure of the financial system. Like, it can't go down. It can't be like Solana.
Meanwhile, we can't ignore the broader crypto ecosystem. Bitcoin set the stage for digital assets, Ethereum taught us about programmable money, and countless altcoins now fill every niche imaginable. XRP sits somewhere between a pure payment token and a utility tool. If DeFi, tokenization of real-world assets, and blockchain adoption accelerate in 2025, XRP could ride that wave. Partnerships with payment giants or tech firms could open entirely new demand channels. Still, volatility remains a defining trait of crypto. Just as quickly as prices climb, they can crash back. Any talk of a vertical ascent to $10,000 per token must be balanced by the reality that markets punish hype without substance. On the optimistic side, XRP's speed and low fees are undeniable. Transactions that take minutes or hours on other chains settle in seconds here. Real-world usage and remittances, cross-border payroll, and institutional settlements could drive steady demand. If Ripple continues to secure high-profile partnerships and banks adopt the ledger for large-scale transfers, the network effect could compound dramatically. On the cautious side, possible regulatory setbacks, stronger competition from emerging blockchains, or even central banks developing their own in-house rails could derail the thesis.
The market cap of these assets is going to blow people's mind when they are implemented at scale.
Oh my God, I've been saying that for freaking 3-4 years, that the market, the way you calculate right now is through the market cap. The market caps are gonna go bye-bye. I don't know nothing, but he just verified what I've been saying for at least 4 years.
Yeah, it'll be based on liquidity.
All right, folks, it's very simple. I buy XRP for the same reason that I bought this F-250. First off, it's made in America, but most importantly, it's the utility. So just like with this truck right here, I can move a lot of weight quickly. With XRP, we're going to move a lot of value quickly, efficiently, and for cheap. That's what it's all about, folks, investing in utility.
As the market evolves, so do the conversations around value. Today, some analysts treat market cap as gospel. Tomorrow, they might focus on on-chain volume or network health. Longtime XRP believers argue that metrics like transaction count and liquidity depth are early indicators of breakthrough moments. When institutions see robust, battle-tested performance, that's when money starts to flow in earnest. The countdown to next year grows shorter by the day. Every new partnership, every legal milestone, and every technical upgrade nudges the needle. For some, that's enough to justify a $10,000 target. For others, it's wishful thinking dressed up as rigorous analysis. But whether you view this as a plausible scenario or an impossible dream, it's impossible to ignore the magnitude of what's on the table.
If there are 100 billion XRP available, then how can companies move trillions of dollars using XRP? Are they purchasing XRP to move the money? So again, this is volume. Right now, to move through XRP, you need ODL, you need Uphold, because Uphold does a fiat to digital currency transfer for XRP, sends it to the counterparty, and then they swap it back into fiat and then send that to the counterparty's bank. That's how they're moving. They're going to move trillions. They're really not moving trillions right now. And the other way that they do it is they lend the XRP out, but it's really just like a liquidity. So they lend the XRP, Uphold exchanges that for fiat, they lend it to the bank uses that money however they're going to use it for 7 days. They send it back to Uphold with the interest, they swap it back for XRP, and then they send it back to Ripple. At least that was the way it was explained to me in the conversation a couple hours after Simon inked that deal with Ripple. They're not moving trillions through the XRPO yet, but as price appreciates on XRP, there'll be enough liquidity in XRP to be able to facilitate those transactions, and different counterparties are holding XRP will start utilizing it to be able to settle those.
Around the same time, market commentator Levi Rietveld spotlighted Ripple's strategic involvement in central bank digital currency pilots as the potential catalyst for a surge to $10,000. He highlighted that Ripple is working on at least half a dozen CBDC projects worldwide, including Montenegro, Georgia, and Palau, and hinted at more in the pipeline. Each of these programs explores how a national digital currency could leverage blockchain speed, security, and programmability. If XRP becomes the liquidity layer that settles transactions across multiple sovereign networks, the cumulative on-chain volume could swell to levels that dwarf today's figures, flooding the XRP ledger with unprecedented demand and transaction fees. In Montenegro's April 2023 pilot, Ripple collaborated with the central bank to test blockchain-based payments and assess financial inclusion improvements. They evaluated how programmable tokens could automate compliance and streamline cross-border remittances. In Georgia, Ripple's platform supported the national bank's digital lari pilot, exploring how programmable money could enhance government disbursements and retail payments. Palau's stablecoin-backed CBDC experiment on the XRP ledger aims to bring scalable, low-cost digital payments to Pacific Island residents. Meanwhile, Bhutan, Colombia, and Hong Kong are running their own Ripple-assisted pilots or evaluating proof of concepts. If even a fraction of these pilots scale into full production, daily transactional volumes could climb into the hundreds of billions, pushing fee-driven demand for XRP through the roof. XRP's token economics add another intriguing layer. At its launch, 100 billion tokens were minted, with Ripple locking away 55 billion in time-locked escrows set to release up to 1 billion XRP per month over roughly 5 years. Ripple has in many cases relocked or withheld much of each month's scheduled release, softening the impact of additional supply entering the market. Moreover, every transaction on the ledger destroys a tiny fraction of XRP to prevent spam, introducing a slow but steady deflationary pressure that subtly reduces circulating supply over time. In an environment of surging transaction volume driven by CBDCs or large-scale institutional usage, this supply control mechanism could amplify price gains beyond what raw demand figures alone would suggest. To put today's numbers in perspective, XRP sits at around $3 per token, giving it a market cap near $177 billion. A jump to $10,000 per token would inflate that cap to approximately $5.7 quadrillion, 12 times the combined value of every single asset tracked as global wealth. The question of where that capital comes from naturally arises. Retail traders simply can't move the needle at that scale. Instead, it would require massive inflows from central banks running digital currency corridors through XRP, corporate treasuries allocating portions of their reserves to digital assets, hedge funds deploying new liquidity strategies, and sovereign wealth funds diversifying into blockchain networks.
The macro environment around custody digital assets is expected to be close to $10 trillion by the year 2030. Inevitably, people are going to need a place to store those assets, and safe, secure, and they're going to need to be able to transfer them as well, having good on and off ramps, even a tokenization engine, some of the work Ripple is doing around central bank digital currencies or CBDCs. So we think there's a lot of pieces that come together, and We already had, and I remember when you and I first spoke, I remember being on a call with one of the largest top 10 banks in the world, and a bank Ripple was already working with, and they were asking us about could we help them with their custody. This is prior to the Medico acquisition, and we weren't in a position to do that. And so when we think about that synergy, the ability to say to that existing Ripple customer, here's a best in class, going head to head, time and time again, and winning in the custody level, to be able to bring that product to them, I think is a great opportunity for the two companies together.
History shows that digital assets can defy skeptics. Bitcoin itself was once dismissed as a fringe experiment, yet it soared to $60,000 in under a decade. Ethereum's programmable contracts seemed overly academic, yet they gave rise to multi-billion-dollar decentralized finance ecosystems. Optimists argue that if global finance adopts blockchain rails en masse through CBDCs, tokenized securities, and programmable money, the demand curve for reliable, high-throughput networks like XRP could bend upward far faster than traditional markets allow. Still, when the pieces align, when central banks trial digital currencies on the XRP ledger, when legal clouds clear, when institutions allocate significant reserves, and when network metrics demonstrate rock-solid performance, the whisper of $10,000 could grow into a roar. That's why the question of why XRP could hit $10,000 by next year transcends mere clickbait. It represents a glimpse into how digital assets might reshape global finance, accelerate liquidity flows, and challenge the parameters of value itself. Revolutions begin as whispers, and today, the whisper around XRP is growing louder than ever. Do you believe XRP can truly become the new global reserve currency? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this deep dive sparked your interest, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming analyses on the evolving world of digital currencies.